Hello and welcome everyone. This is MrSovr with another AGK or app game kit tutorial, and this time I'm going to be doing multiplayer commands. Now the reason why I'm not using the AGK launcher or the IDE and using the word edit or whatever it's called program on the Mac is because my laptop is actually creating a super OP terrain and it's been taking a couple days, so anyways, I'm not going to be able to execute it, but I know for sure this code should work as long as I didn't do any spelling errors, which I did double check. But anyways, so what we have here is the host software and the client software. The client software uses the command join network to join the hosting network, which is named tutorial, and links up with it, so therefore you can transfer information back and forth from the program. In this case, we just have a simple client to host, not a peer-to-peer type of connection. So this software over here is just going to transmit information to the host, and that is basically it, not back and forth. So the join network, you have to have two things. I know for Android it's slightly different. You have to supply the IP address instead of the network name. But for now, we use the network name and your player name. The player name does not have to match up with the host network, but it does have to be different. It's like having multiple people with the same name on the same game. It won't work out good because then the host doesn't know which player is which or who's different type of thing. But so we named this program client and this program host. And for the join network and the host network, it gives you a return value of the network ID number. Sort of a bit like how the image ID, the Sprite ID, how those systems work. They also have it for networks. And this net variable stores the actual net ID, which will be later used in the go sub function to the internet. So right here, the 4444, that is your port number. I believe every single networking program, whatever programming language you have to have like port numbers. And for AGK, you always need port numbers, and it doesn't really matter which one you choose as long as it does not conflict with another program. I tend to use 4444 because I never use it, and none of the other programs ever use it. But for some reason, if your game crashes, try changing the port number and it might fix it. So so before I'm gonna go into the code and everything, what I'm trying to do with these two programs is one program is gonna have a row or a column of buttons. Each button will change the variable up, down, left, or right. For example, the x coordinates and y coordinates would either go up or down based on which button you press, and it's going to change the position of a sprite over here. So I'm going to load an image and set that image to a sprite, so there's a sprite on the screen. And then it goes into this do loop, which it goes through sync, which is updating stuff, and then it goes through the internet. Go sub. And don't forget, go sub is called go subroutine. It goes to a subroutine and then returns back to this initial spot in the code, which I believe I've explained in previous tutorials. So it jumps over to the internet, don't forget about the colon, and it gets to this command called get network message, which you have to supply the net ID number right here, and it gives you a message ID. And yes, message ID works as the network ID and also works like the image ID, Sprite ID. That's the thing with AGK and Dark Basic Pro. They always have like identification number systems. And that's what I really like about it, because then you can track your stuff a lot easily. Or easier, I meant. And so, for example, if there's no message sent to you, it'll have like an if message does not equal, which is like a less than and greater than sign together. If it's not equal to 0, then it will try to extract the information from the message, which you can put all sorts of information in there. Like you could do an integer, a string, an integer, a float, an integer, a string. And you can do more than 3. You can do like 10, 20. Yes, it may be a lot of information to transfer, but you can do a lot. I don't know what the limit is, but you can transfer a lot of information per message. But in this case, I have an integer, and a string. And in order to extract the information from the single message, you have to supply the message ID number in each parameter, which will then give you a return value of the integer, and the string. In this case, I kind of messed up on this part. You need to have a $sign on the outside of the name. I kind of forgot about that. So the $sign indicates that this variable is a string, where if there is nothing in front of it, then it assumes that it is a integer. If you want to have a float, then you would have to do $, or number sign, number symbol, whatever. That would equal a float. And the difference between a float and an integer means no decimals, and a float does mean decimals. Just means it's more accurate but takes up more memory. So when we get our X and Y coordinates from this program, and we get, just for a show of how it can work with strings, it will give us the name of the program, which in this case would be submitted as client. When we're done with this, we're going to delete the message, which again uses the message ID variable, which will delete it, so it's not like there's 100 message after 100 updates. I don't know if that would take up memory or not, but it'll definitely be a lot of messages to store. So I usually delete the message after I'm done extracting the information. And then it ends the if statement. Again, if this is equal 0, it's going to skip all this, so it won't really have an error, which I've experienced in the past and couldn't figure out for a while. So anyways, going on to here, I'll update the position of the sprite based on the X and Y variables that we've gotten from this program, and it will print the name this program's named, and it will use the return value to jump back to Go Sub Internet, do the loop again, and keep on going over and over and over until you exit out of the program. Now this right here is a comment. You would need the rem as a reminder. Well, it means reminder. It is a common type of thing. I believe I talked about it in the past, but just to point that out. So in here, it's very similar, but this time we add virtual buttons. Again, with the join network, you do not need a port number. You just need identical names for the networks, because that's what links this network to that network. Well, actually, this doesn't have a network, but it's joining onto this network. If this were to be tutorials, and this is tutorial, it will not link together. But if there's another host program called tutorials, it'll link to that one instead, and this one will have 0 clients on it. So make sure that the name of networks are the same. The names of the players have to be different, and this can be whatever number as long as it works. And so with the add virtual button, we have the ID numbers, the X coordinates, the Y coordinates, and the size of the button. And we go into this loop, goes through the sync, which is the update, and the internet is very similar to this, but instead of getting information, it is putting information into a message, and we are actually creating a message. So within the internet, create network message command does not need any arguments within here, and it gives you a return value, which is the message ID. And then we do add network message integer, same thing for the second one, and add network message string. You need the message ID and then comma the actual variable, which is the X, for the X coordinates, which will be sent over here. To get this, like, it's just transferring the variable from here over to this program to move the sprite over here while you're pressing buttons over here. And you do the same thing for client, but instead of putting a variable in, we just had quotation marks, and we use the send network message command, which uses the net ID, the message ID. And this 0 basically means, okay, I'm going to send it to every single client. That's basically what it's meaning. And I believe that the client software can do this, and the host network can do this also. if you want to say, okay, instead of 0, I want 1. That basically means I'll be sending it back to myself, which wouldn't mean anything because I have nothing in the code to actually get the stuff. But if I do 2, it might send it to the second client, which it can send it to different clients as long as they have the code of receiving a message and analyzing it and stuff like that. But in this case, only the host does that. So if you're doing a game and stuff like that, this would be a really bad program to do it on because you would be the only one seeing the stuff and none of the players would be. But this is just an example of how the program works. And then when you've sent the message, of course, delete the message with the message ID, and then it'll go back through the loop and stuff like that. Now, the get virtual button state command is basically just, okay, if it's down, it equals 1. If you're not clicking it, it equals 0. And then you do the ID number for the virtual button. And so if the virtual button is down or clicked on, then x equals x plus 1, which would move the x coordinates positive 1 every time you hold it down. So every single update, the x will increment up 1. If you press on button 2, the increment will be negative 1 for x. And then if you press the other button, it'll be down 1, up 1 for the sprite and stuff like that. Of course, you can pause the video, copy this down, and try it for yourself. I'm really sorry that I don't have the IDE working. Anyways, even if I did have the IDE, I would have to use my iPhone because I would need 2 computers to make it work. And I don't know, I figured this would be the best way. I'm going to be doing more tutorials, more on 3D stuff since I am finally figuring out shaders thanks to Cliff, which is on the forums. He's really, really, really helpful with the shaders and stuff like that, which I appreciate. If he's watching, thank you very much. I'm MrSovr on the forums, I believe. I'm MrSovr on YouTube, of course. Make sure to like the video if you like it a lot, and if you want to help the App Game Kit community and the game creators community, make sure to like the video so more people can see. And if you want to support me with all of these tutorials that I'm doing and additional tutorials I'm going to be doing, make sure to click on the subscribe button and also share this video on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. Now, just really quick news. Finals for me are just around the corner. I got Calc 3 in engineering, Java programming class, and also physics class, so I'm pretty much packed. I'm even surprised I'm able to put this video on and even the previous video I did. So don't expect too much until winter break. So yeah, thank you for watching, and hopefully this has helped you a lot. This is MrSovr. See ya.